segments prior to this segment. So I had a high school love my junior and senior year in high school that I was crazy about. And he did not want to really date just one person. He wanted to date multiple people throughout high school. So he was that one little guy that I always had in my heart, and that love never dissipated. So in Momentary Marriage, he also stopped by my house one day with a message from his mother. And his mother told him to come by my house and tell me, go tell Sonya that she should not marry this man. And as you all know, I was hard-headed. I didn't listen. And I married this guy. However, 11 weeks later, I was back home trying to get an annulment, but couldn't, and ended up having to divorce him. So when I got back home, he would come home from college, and sometimes we'd go grab a bite to eat. We may go to a basketball game, go to the movies. So he and I never really hit it off as something that would go into something serious. So one day he stops by my house again, unannounced, rings the doorbell. I go and open the door, and I'm like, hey. He's like, hey, I'm stopping by because my mom told me to come and tell you that you will be married again by the age of 24. I'm like, what? My mom said you're going to be married again by the age of 24. I'm like, to who? And I'm looking at him, I'm thinking, oh, well, maybe. And he's like, I'm not saying it's going to be me. So I was just like, pfft, okay, whatever. We talk a little bit, and he goes on his way. So as I told you all last week, in the first episode of 17 Years a Wife, I've met a new Michael. We start talking. We start hanging out. So 2 weeks or into a month of us talking, he comes to me and he gives me this wad of money. And I'm like, what is this for? He said, it's for you. I'm like, where did it come from? So in my mind, y'all, I'm thinking, okay, this drug money, where does this come from? What is this? He's like, no. This is my money from my paycheck. I have taken out everything I need to pay bills, to get my son diapers, pay child support. This is for you. I'm like, okay, but why? He says, I want to take care of you, and I want you to have everything that you need. So I'm thinking to myself, wow, okay, a man give me money? Somebody other than my father? What? Get out. And at that time, so I was 23, 24. He was 22, 23. So I'm just like, what? I said, okay. So a little skeptical. I did take the money. He told me to put it in the bank. I put it in the bank. I didn't spend it right away. I just let it sit in the bank for a while. But y'all, his next pay period, he does the same thing again. And this was consistent throughout our courtship. So sometimes when he'd give me the money, he'd say, okay, this is for you. Take this much and put it to the side for me. Because again, like I said, y'all, he was staying in between his grandmother's house, his brother's house, and his dad's house. So as time went on, he decided to move in with his father, and he'd pay his father a little rent. And he decided to move with his father because it was closer to me. So we may have been about 15 or 20 minutes away from each other so he could get to me quickly. And then also, since he was on the bus line on those days where we went to work about the same time, I would just swoop him up and take him to work with me when I go to work. So our divorces were final. Mine was final April of 1993. His was final maybe 2 to 3 months after that, or a month or two after that. So once his divorce was final, he let me know, I want to marry you. And I was like, I could see that as well. We got along, we didn't fuss, we didn't argue. There was no tension, we had fun together. So we decided we were going to get married. I let my parents know. They were okay with it. They weren't like at me like they were with the other Michael. The other Michael every day was like, are you sure, or this? They liked him. After he was around our family for a while, he grew on them. They fell in love with him. So after we let them know that we courted, and during our courtship, let's see, we probably saw each other maybe 5 days a week, if possible, depending on his schedule with work and school, and then my schedule, because he was restaurant management and I was retail management, doing part-time work because I was a part-time assistant manager at that time. So our schedules were pretty busy. On Sundays, we'd have church. Some Sundays, it'd be 2 services, morning and evening. And I was active in church. He went to church, but he was not in any ministries. I served in praise dance, I served in choir, as well as I helped on the women's ministry when needed. So my week consisted of, like I say, church on Sundays, sometimes twice on Sundays. Monday was usually clear. Tuesdays or Saturdays would be praise dance. If there was an event coming up at church, we'd practice on those days. Wednesdays was Bible studies. Thursday was choir rehearsal. So Friday or Saturday, we try to take one of those days, depending on our work schedule, to either go to the movies, to go out to eat. And he was consistent in making sure that we kept date night every week. So I could say this courtship and relationship was much different than the prior Michael. I didn't have all the remarks from people as like, please don't marry him, but ugh, I don't like him. Except for one. So that same little sister that thought the last one wasn't going to treat me right fell out with this one. He said something to her one day, and it just didn't set right with her. And from that point, they were no more good as far as being very friendly to each other. They'd be cordial, but not friendly. So she didn't care for him. And then my pastor, who married me along with my father-in-law in Momentary Marriage, happened to be at church one day. We're in the office, and I remember it was pastor, first lady, and assistant pastor, and their kids were around there as well, somewhere going in and out of the office. So I'm in the office talking to them because my pastor and his wife were getting ready to go out of town to Oklahoma. I believe it was Oklahoma. But they were going to be gone for a week, and they had me stay with their 4 kids while they were out of town. So we were discussing that as well as the date of the wedding that we had set. So I'm in the office telling Pastor the date that we've picked and what we've planned for. He looks at his calendar and he's unavailable. He has to be somewhere else on that Saturday. So assistant pastor's in there. He calls him in, asks him if he'd be able to do it. And he says yes, he'd be able to do it. So I was like, okay, let's keep it on that particular date, and I'll go with my assistant pastor marrying us instead of my pastor. So we're sitting there and we're talking, and y'all, my pastor, Pastor Gentry, Sister Sonya, yes sir, he does it again, y'all. You're supposed to be marrying a pastor. So y'all, when he says that, I say almost the exact same thing I said in Momentary Marriage. Because this Michael, his father was an assistant pastor at a church. His uncle and great uncle were both prominent pastors of what you would call mega churches back in the 80s. And then the long line of pastors that he comes from as well. So I'm like, he gonna be a pastor. This one gonna be a pastor. And he's like, he's like, okay, but you're supposed to be marrying a pastor. So y'all, let me tell you, I have never been one of those girls, females, that's a groupie of athletes, musicians, a groupie of guys or men that drive muscle cars or fine cars, and definitely not a groupie of a man of God that's a leader in ministry. Because you know, you have some women that are just like, they love pastors, they love ministers, they love, you know, bishops, evangelists, apostles, whatever. Nope. Not I. Just give me a man of God, a man that I know that's going to pray, cover me, keep me, whatever. So when he said that to me, I just remember like feeling like, ooh, I couldn't imagine. So we continue to talk or whatever, and he looks at me again. He's like, Pastor. I'm just like, okay, we'll see what happens in the future. So we continue to talk, make plans for what I need to do, and be at their house when they go out of town. So let's see, 7 months prior to the wedding, Michael now has a car. 5 months prior to the wedding, he's no longer living with his dad. He's leasing an apartment from my grandmother. My grandmother had a garage apartment behind her house, and my dad has drawn up a lease for him. And he and my grandmother sign it and get all the pertinent information to him. He leases the apartment, he moves in. So 3 to 4 months before the wedding, we're going to counseling and continue to working on the plans of the wedding. So counseling goes well. We're planning the wedding, trying to get everything in order. And y'all, this wedding is on us, because my parents are like, after Momentary Marriage, we are not momentarily giving up any money for anything for you to be back home 11 weeks later. They didn't say that, but after spending all of that money on Momentary Marriage, they were like, boo, this one is on you. So we had our money, we got everything together. My parents did pay for a few small things here and there that they wanted to do. We kept it simple. As I told you, there was no proposal. There was no ring. prior to the wedding. We just went with wedding bands. We kept it simple. I said I would design my ring later, and we'll get a ring later down the road. It doesn't matter. My mom worked on getting my dress as well as the bridesmaid's dress. So my mom owned a boutique for about 15 years. So she went out to her supplier and found me a beautiful sequins dress and found sequins dresses for the bridesmaids. And then helped out with other little things with the wedding, as I stated. As far as a wedding gift, they let me know in advance, we not buying you no wedding gift, because we don't want that money going down the drain and never see that. So my dad had said after 5 years of marriage, you will get your wedding gift. And I was like, okay, I'm fine. That was no big deal to me. So, wedding day gets here, y'all. I'm happy. I'm excited. I'm in the moment. It is nothing like momentary marriage. Nothing like momentary marriage. So, as I said, we kept it simple. We had our wedding and reception at the church. I got dressed at home and then came to the church. I don't even remember where the bridesmaids were. I guess they probably got dressed at home too. I don't recall. But we probably had, it was probably no more than 125 guests, or anywhere from 100 to 125 guests. I remember it being kind of a dreary day. It drizzled off and on all day long. It rained a little before the wedding, but there was no thunder and lightning. So prior to the wedding started, the photographer's there. He's taking pictures of me and my parents, the wedding party, and everybody starts to line up to go into the sanctuary to get ready for the wedding to start. And I remember all of a sudden my stomach just started just like swirling. It's just like, oh my God, oh my God. My dad is like, what's wrong? I'm like, I don't know. I'm getting hot. I don't know. He's like, baby, what's wrong? I said, baby, my daddy, my stomach. Y'all, I didn't know if I wanted to spit up or poop out. But my nerves were so bad, and I just remember my dad, you know, just like grabbing my arm, and he was like, baby, it's okay. It's okay, baby. It's okay. It's okay. So the wedding party has started to go into the church. I hear the music of the selections we started for the bridesmaid, the groomsmen to come in, the bridesmaids, along with the flower girls. So me and my dad get closer to the door to go into the church. And I just remember my stomach still swirling. I don't know, like I say, what I'm gonna do, if I'm gonna throw up or what. So I hear First Lady start to play on the organ, and my brother-in-law stands up. I see him stand up because we could see through the double doors that had glass on it, so I could see through. And she starts playing this music, and he stands up and starts to sing. I'm breathing in and out deeply, and my dad is just like, okay, baby, here we go. In this song that Michael dedicated to me, his brother's singing. So y'all, as I walked down that aisle, he was smiling at me. I was smiling at him. Tears running down my face. My dad just patting my hand all the way down the aisle, talking about, I got you. I got you. I was happy. I was in the moment. We said our vows. We prayed. We lit the unity candle. And pretty much that was a wedding, probably 20 minutes. We took pictures. As I stated, the reception, it was nothing big. It was in the church. We had a few hors d'oeuvres, cake, punch, fellowship. The wedding probably started at 4:30. Tried to find the invitation, but I couldn't find one. But it started about 4:30. Everybody was going home by 7:30. We went home, or to my parents' house, changed, went on our honeymoon. It wasn't no hitting, it wasn't no drinking, nobody getting drunk. We enjoyed our 4 or 5 days on our honeymoon. Came back, and we had to get back to work. So y'all, that is the dating, courtship, and marriage of Sonya and Michael Young, 17 years a wife. Tune in next week as I share the beginning of the union. Hope you all enjoy and have a blessed one. Smooches.